Commander Kong Ho rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the holographic star map floating before him. He had been working for 16 straight hours in the Zephyrian Mapping Station, a massive space station that orbited at the very edge of the galaxy. His job was simple: update the navigation charts that every spaceship in the galaxy used to travel between stars. But something was very wrong with today's data. Every single star map in the galactic database stopped at the same place. It did not matter which species had made the map or when they had made it. The Krillian traders, the Nexari explorers, the ancient Vorthan Empire, even maps from civilizations that had died out thousands of years ago. They all ended at exactly the same coordinates, a small yellow star called Sol. Kongjo had never heard of this star system before. That was strange because he knew every major star system in the galaxy. He was one of the best map makers in known space. But this Sol system appeared on every map, and then the maps just stopped. No trade routes went past it. No exploration records existed beyond it. It was like the entire galaxy had agreed that space simply ended there. "Young Mi, come look at this," he called to his research partner. Dr. Young Mi walked over from her workstation. She was a brilliant scientist from the Altarian species, with pale blue skin and large black eyes that could see much better than human eyes. She studied the holographic display for several minutes. "This makes no sense," she said. "According to these coordinates, there should be thousands more star systems beyond this point. The galaxy does not just end here." Kong Ho nodded. "That's what I thought too. But look at this." He pulled up map after map. Ancient precursor charts from before recorded history. Modern Zephyrian military maps. Trading company navigation data. Exploration Guild survey reports. Every single one terminated at Sol. "Maybe it's a computer error," Young Mi suggested. "I thought so too, but I checked the original data crystals. This is not a mistake. Every species that has ever made a star map has deliberately stopped mapping at this exact point." Young Mi's antennae twitched nervously. This was a sign that she was worried. "Run a search for any information about this Sol system." Kongjo typed the commands into his terminal. The galaxy's central computer network contained the knowledge of hundreds of civilizations, spanning millions of years. If information existed about Sol, the network would find it. The search completed almost instantly. Only one file appeared on the screen. Classification: Absolute Quarantine, Council Directive 1, Kong Ho read aloud. "Access restricted to Level 12 Council members only." Young Mi gasped. Level 12 was the highest security clearance in the entire galaxy. Only the most senior leaders of the Galactic Council could access such files. Even Kong Ho, despite his important job, only had Level 5 clearance. What could be so dangerous that it requires the highest security level? Young Mi asked. Kong Ho tried several different search terms: Sol System, Sol Star, Sol Species, Sol Quarantine. Every search returned the same result: classified at the highest possible level. "Wait," Young Mi said. "Try searching for Terran instead of Sol." Kong Ho typed the new search. This time, several files appeared. Most were still classified, but a few old historical documents were available to read. The text was written in an ancient galactic language that Kong Ho's computer had to translate. "Listen to this," he said, reading from the screen. "From the personal journal of Admiral Dexval Hegemony, 1st Contact Division, dated 847 Standard. Years ago, the Terran encounter has changed everything we understand about the nature of reality. The Council's decision to establish absolute containment protocols is the only logical response. May future generations forgive us for what we witnessed. Terran must mean the species that lives in the Sol system," Young Mi said. "But what did they do that scared an entire galactic civilization?" Kong Ho kept reading. Here's another entry from the same journal. "The human soldiers survived direct exposure to hard vacuum, not with technology or protective suits, but through what can only be described as sheer determination." Our science teams have no explanation for how this is possible. Young Mi's black eyes grew even wider. Humans. They're called humans, apparently. And listen to this part. Congo's voice grew quiet as he read. When we attempted orbital bombardment of their primary cities, the structures rebuilt themselves within hours, not through any visible technology, but as if the universe itself was correcting what it saw as an error in the story. The two researchers sat in stunned silence. They had discovered something that the galaxy's most powerful organizations had tried to keep secret for nearly 1,000 years. Kong-Ho Young Mi said slowly, "What if the maps don't end at Earth because there's nothing beyond it? What if they end there because no one who goes beyond it ever comes back to update the maps?" Before Kong-Ho could answer, his computer terminal began flashing with an urgent message. Someone in the Galactic Council's intelligence division had detected their search queries about Sol and Terran systems. A security team was already on its way to the mapping station. They had stumbled onto the galaxy's most dangerous secret, and now they were in serious trouble. 3 days had passed since the security team arrived at the mapping station. They had confiscated all of Kong-Ho's research and warned him never to search for information about Sol again. But the questions burned in his mind like fire. He could not forget what he had discovered. Young Mi felt the same way. Late at night, when the station was quiet, they would meet in secret and talk about the humans. What made them so dangerous that the entire galaxy feared them? Why did every civilization agree to quarantine one small star system? "I know someone who might help us," Young Mi said during one of their secret meetings. "Her name is Hei-Wan. She used to work for the Galactic Council as a xenarchaeologist, but they threw her out for asking too many questions about forbidden history." "Where is she now?" Kong-Ho asked. "She lives on Centralis Prime, the capital world. She works in the old city, fixing ancient artifacts for private collectors. But I heard rumors that she still has contacts inside the council archives." 2 weeks later, Kong-Ho and Young Mi took leave from their jobs and traveled to Prime. The massive planet was covered in gleaming cities that stretched from pole to pole. Billions of beings from hundreds of different species lived and worked there. It was the perfect place to disappear if someone did not want to be found. They found Dr. Hei-Wan in a small workshop in the oldest part of the capital city. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes but a suspicious expression. Her workshop was filled with broken pieces of technology from civilizations that had died out long ago. "Young Mi told me you were asking dangerous questions about Sol," Hei-Wan said, without greeting them. "That's a good way to end up in a council prison." "We need to know the truth," Kong-Ho replied. "Every map in the galaxy ends at the same place. There has to be a reason." Hei-Wan studied them for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "I lost my job because I found evidence that the council has been lying to us for centuries. They destroyed most of my research, but I managed to hide some data crystals." She led them to a hidden room behind her workshop. The walls were covered with star charts, historical documents, and photographs of ancient artifacts. In the center of the room stood a single computer terminal that looked like it had been built from spare parts. "Everything in this room is about the Sol quarantine," Hei-Wan explained. "I've spent 15 years collecting this information. Most of it comes from archives that the council thinks were destroyed long ago." She activated the computer terminal. Ancient text appeared on the screen in dozens of different languages. Kongo's translation device worked hard to make sense of the words. "This document is called the Terran Directive," Hei-Wan said. "It was signed by every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy 847 years ago. Look at the signatures: Hegemony, Krillian, Trade Federation, Nexori Empire, Zephyrian Republic, even the mysterious precursors. Every single major power agreed to the same terms." Young Mi read the translated text aloud. "We, the undersigned representatives of galactic civilization, do hereby establish absolute containment protocols for the Sol 3 system and its inhabitants. No contact shall be attempted. No trade routes shall be established. No exploration beyond the soul barrier shall be permitted. This directive shall remain in force until the end of time. But why? Congo asked. What did the humans do? HFY pulled up another file. This is a partial report from the first contact mission. Most of it was destroyed, but I found fragments in an abandoned hegemony data core. The report was badly damaged, with many words missing, but what remained was terrifying. It described human soldiers who could survive in the vacuum of space without protection. It mentioned cities that rebuilt themselves after being destroyed. It talked about something called reality storms that made the laws of physics stop working properly. Here's the part that scared me the most, HFY said, pointing to a section of text. The report says that human weapons were less advanced than galactic standard, but they won every battle anyway. Not through superior tactics or numbers, but because their victories felt dramatically appropriate. What does that mean? Young me asked. I think it means that reality itself was helping the humans win, HFY replied. Like the universe wanted their story to have a happy ending. Kongho shook his head. That's impossible. The universe doesn't take sides in wars. Maybe. Not for us, HFY said. But apparently it does for humans. She showed them more documents. Reports of human children surviving deadly diseases through pure willpower. Stories of human explorers finding exactly what they needed in impossible situations. Accounts of human leaders making speeches that somehow convinced their enemies to surrender without fighting. Every species that encountered humans came to the same conclusion, HFY explained. Humans don't follow the normal rules of reality. They live in a universe where determination and hope have actual physical power, where stories matter more than science. But surely someone kept records of where they went after the quarantine was established, Kongho asked. HFY's expression grew grim. That's the truly frightening part. According to my research, there is one survivor from the original first contact mission. His name is Jinwoo, and he's been hiding on a rogue planet between the spiral arms for over 800 years. He's the only being alive who actually met a human face to face. Young Mi and Kongho exchanged glances. They knew what they had to do next. Finding Jinwoo took 3 weeks of searching through the empty space between spiral arms. HFY had given them the approximate coordinates of his hiding place, but space was vast, and dark planets were hard to find. Finally, Young Mi's sensors detected a small world, drifting alone in the void, far from any star. The planet was cold and dead. No atmosphere, no life, just bare rock and ice. But deep scans showed artificial structures buried beneath the surface. Someone had built a hidden base there many centuries ago. Kongho piloted their small ship down to the planet's surface. They landed next to what looked like a metal door built into the side of a mountain. Ancient symbols were carved around the entrance, but the door itself looked functional. Are you sure about this? Young Mi asked as they put on their environmental suits. If Jinwoo wanted visitors, he wouldn't be hiding in a place like this. We've come too far to turn back now, Kongho replied. They approached the door and knocked. Nothing happened for several minutes. Then, slowly, the heavy metal barrier slid open. Warm air flowed out from the tunnel beyond. A voice spoke from hidden speakers. State your business here. Very few beings know about this place. We're looking for Jinwoo, the ancient, Kongho said. We want to know about the first contact with humans. Long silence. Then the voice spoke again, sounding tired and old. Follow the tunnel. Do not touch anything along the way. I have defenses that will kill you if you try to steal from me or harm me. They walked through a long corridor carved from solid rock. The walls were lined with weapons and artifacts from dozens of different civilizations. At the end of the tunnel, they found a large chamber filled with books, computers, and furniture from across the galaxy. Jinwoo sat in a chair near the center of the room. He looked incredibly old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His skin was pale and wrinkled, his eyes were cloudy with age, but he still moved with the careful grace of a trained soldier. "So," he said without greeting them, "more people want to hear about the humans. You're not the first. Every few decades, someone finds me and asks the same questions. What happened during first contact?" Youngmi asked directly. Jinwoo stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "What happened? Everything we thought we knew about the universe turned out to be wrong. That's what happened." He stood up slowly and walked to a large window that looked out over the frozen landscape. "I was a fleet commander in the Hegemony Navy. We had the most powerful military in the galaxy. Our ships could destroy entire planets. Our soldiers were the best trained warriors in known space. The Hegemony decided to make contact with a primitive species on a planet called Earth. They had just invented nuclear weapons and simple spacecraft. We expected it to be routine, show them our superior technology, offer them a place in galactic civilization, and move on to the next system." Kang Zhou activated his recording device. "What went wrong?" Jinwoo turned back to face them. His old eyes held a haunted expression. "Everything. We arrived at Earth and sent down our standard first contact team, 20 of our best diplomats and scientists, protected by a full company of Marines in powered armor. The humans met us in what they called New York City. Millions of them lived there in tall metal buildings. They seemed curious about us, but not afraid. That should have been our first warning." Youngmi leaned forward. "Why? Because every other species we had ever contacted was terrified when they first saw our ships. Humans just asked if we wanted to have lunch and talk." Jinwoo walked to a cabinet and pulled out a bottle of blue liquid. He poured some into a glass and drank it before continuing. "The negotiations went well at first. The humans were intelligent and reasonable. They asked good questions about galactic civilization and seemed interested in joining. But then our military advisors made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" Kang Ho asked. "They decided to demonstrate our power. Standard procedure: destroy an empty area to show the locals what would happen if they refused our offer. We targeted a desert region far from any cities and fired a single shot from orbit." Jinwoo's hands began to shake as he remembered. The blast created a crater 10 kilometers wide. We waited for the humans to surrender in fear, like every other species had done. Instead, they got angry. What did they do? At first, nothing visible. The human leaders just looked sad and disappointed. They asked us why we had destroyed their desert. We explained that it was a demonstration of our power to help them understand the consequences of resistance. That's when everything started going wrong. Our ship's computers began malfunctioning, but not in any way our engineers could explain. Weapons would fire in the wrong direction. Navigation systems would lead us in circles. Life support would fail in dramatically convenient ways. Youngmi frowned. "That sounds like sabotage." "That's what we thought too. But our security scans found no evidence of human infiltration. The malfunctions seemed to happen by themselves, always at the worst possible moment for us. Then the humans started doing impossible things. Our Marines reported that human soldiers could survive in hard vacuum without protection, not for a few seconds, but for hours. When we bombed their cities to force surrender, the buildings would rebuild themselves overnight." Jinwoo sat down heavily in his chair. The worst part was the way our own people began to change. Soldiers who had never questioned orders started refusing to fight. Engineers began to believe that human technology was somehow superior to ours, even though their computers were primitive. How did it end? We tried to retreat, but when we reached the edge of the Sol system, our ships stopped working entirely. We were trapped there for 3 months, while reality itself seemed to bend around the humans. Finally, they came to us with a proposal. Kang Ho held his breath. "What proposal?" They would let us leave safely if we promised never to return and never to allow anyone else to visit their system. They said the galaxy wasn't ready for humans yet, and humans weren't ready for the galaxy. Of course we agreed. We just wanted to escape that nightmare. But as we left, one of the human leaders told me something that I'll never forget. What did he say? Jinwoo looked directly at Kong Ho. He said that humans were sorry for frightening us. He said that they didn't choose to have reality bend around them. It just happened when they really believed in something. And he said that someday, when they learned better control, they would come find us. The old survivor's voice dropped to a whisper. That was 847 years ago, and according to my sensors, the first human ships just left their solar system 3 days ago. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered on Centralus Prime within hours of receiving the alert. The massive council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of different species whispered among themselves. Commander Sun Ho stood at the center of the chamber, his hands shaking slightly as he prepared to deliver the most important report of his career. For the past 50 years, he had commanded the secret monitoring stations positioned at the edge of the Sol system. His job was simple: watch the humans and make sure they never left their star system. He had failed. Honorable representatives, Sun Ho began, his voice echoing through the chamber. 3 days ago, our sensors detected the first human spacecraft leaving the Sol system. They have developed faster than light travel. A wave of panic swept through the chamber. Representatives began shouting in dozens of different languages. The speaker of the council, an ancient being named Mi Young, raised her staff for silence. Commander Sun Ho, she said in a calm voice, please explain to the council what we are facing. Sun Ho activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the chamber. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. It looked like a peaceful, normal world. For 847 years, we have maintained constant observation of the human homeworld, Sun Ho continued. What we have learned challenges everything we understand about the nature of reality itself. He gestured, and the display changed to show scientific data, energy readings, quantum measurements, dimensional analysis reports. Humans are not like us. While every other species in the galaxy evolved within the normal constraints of physical law, humans developed in a unique location. Earth sits at the convergence point of multiple dimensional layers. This has had a profound effect on their development. A representative from the Krillian Trade Federation stood up. What kind of effect? Humans can manipulate reality through belief and determination, Sun Ho replied. Not through technology or psychic powers, but through something we call narrative, causality. When humans truly believe something should happen, the universe has a tendency to make it happen. The chamber erupted in voices again. Many representatives refused to believe what they were hearing. The speaker called for order once more. Show them the examples, Myung commanded. Sun Ho nodded and changed the display. Observation log 23,451. A human child fell from a tall building. According to physics, the child should have died. Instead, a strong wind suddenly appeared and blew the child onto a pile of soft materials that had not been there moments before. Observation log 31,667. Human doctors were treating a patient with an incurable disease. They refused to give up hope. The disease mysteriously disappeared overnight, leaving no trace in the patient's body. Observation log 44,882. A human exploration team was trapped in an underwater cave with no way out. They continued searching for an exit even when their oxygen ran low. A new passage opened in the cave wall, a passage that our geological scans confirmed did not exist before they found it. Young Mi, who had traveled to Centralis Prime with Kong Ho and Hae-won, stood up in the viewing gallery. Are you saying humans can change the laws of physics? Sun Ho looked up at her. Not exactly. They don't consciously control reality. Instead, They seem to exist in a universe where story logic is more powerful than scientific law. Good things happen to humans who never give up. Problems have solutions when humans really need them. Heroes find a way to win against impossible odds. An elderly representative from the Nexari Empire raised a tentacle. This sounds like primitive superstition, not science. I thought the same thing, Sunho replied, until I analyzed 847 years of observation data. Humans have been involved in over 12,000 major conflicts during our observation period. In every single case where humans fought for something they believed was right, they found a way to win, not through superior weapons or tactics, but through what can only be described as cosmic coincidence. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Hei-1 whispered to Kongho, "This explains everything we found in the archives." Sunho continued his presentation. The quarantine was never about protecting the galaxy from human aggression. It was about preventing humans from accidentally rewriting the fundamental laws of reality. Their presence creates what we call narrative fields, areas where dramatic logic becomes more powerful than natural law. What happens when these narrative fields expand beyond Earth? The speaker asked. We're already seeing the effects, Sunho replied grimly. Since the first human ship left Sol, we've detected reality fluctuations across 17 different star systems. Ancient mysteries are suddenly solving themselves. Dead worlds are showing signs of life. Enemy civilizations are making peace for no apparent reason. He paused and looked around the chamber. The humans are making the universe more meaningful, more like the stories they tell themselves. A Zephyrian military commander stood up. Can we stop them? Sunho shook his head. Every simulation we've run ends the same way. If we attack humans, we become the villains in their story. And in human stories, villains always lose in the end. The universe seems to agree with them. Myung struck her staff against the floor. Then what do you recommend, Commander? We have two choices, Sunho replied. We can try to fight a species that reality itself seems to favor. Or we can accept that the galaxy is about to become a very different place. A place where good intentions matter more than superior firepower, where problems have solutions, and where stories have happy endings. The speaker looked around the chamber at hundreds of worried faces. The age of cold, logical universe is ending, she announced. The age of human narrative is about to begin. Outside the chamber, the first human exploration ship was already making contact with a trading post near Alpha Centauri. The trader later reported that the humans were incredibly polite and seemed genuinely excited to meet aliens. They offered fair prices for fuel and supplies, asked thoughtful questions about galactic civilization, and left everyone they met feeling somehow more optimistic about the future. The transformation had begun. Captain Soyoung Kim stood on the bridge of the starship New Seoul and watched history unfold before her eyes. She was the first human being to travel beyond the solar system, and she had no idea that her journey was about to change the entire galaxy. Navigator Donghae, are you seeing this? She asked, pointing at the star charts displayed on the main screen. Yes, Captain Donghae replied, his voice filled with wonder. The navigation routes are reorganizing themselves. Trade lanes that were scattered randomly across space are now forming neat, logical patterns. Soyoung had been confused when they first detected the strange energy readings at the edge of human space. Ancient monitoring stations had been watching Earth for centuries, but they had gone silent the moment New Seoul crossed some invisible boundary. Now she was beginning to understand why. Captain, called out the communications officer Min, I'm receiving messages from alien trading posts. They all want to welcome us to the galaxy and invite us to visit their worlds. That's odd, Soyoung said. I thought first contact with alien species was supposed to be more complicated. What Captain Kim didn't know was that across the galaxy, reality was shifting to accommodate humanity's arrival. The universe was becoming more like the stories humans told themselves, more fair, more logical, more hopeful. On the mining world of Kepler 442, two alien species, who had been fighting over mineral rights for 300 years, suddenly decided to share the resources equally. Neither species could explain why they had changed their minds, but the decision felt right in a way that surprised everyone involved. In the Vega system, scientists discovered that a plague that had been killing millions of people for decades had mysteriously mutated into a harmless form overnight. Medical researchers were baffled, but the families of recovered patients didn't care about explanations. They were just grateful their loved ones were alive. Near the galactic core, an ancient space station that had been drifting powerless for 1,000 years suddenly came back to life. The station's computers contained the lost history of a civilization that had vanished without explanation. Archaeologists who had been searching for this information for centuries wept with joy when they received the data transmission. Back on Centralis Prime, Kongzhou watched the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. He sat in the Galactic Council's Emergency Command Center, helping to track the changes that were spreading like ripples through space. "This is impossible," said Dr. Youngmi, who was studying the sensor readings. "Reality doesn't just change because someone wants it to." "It does, if you're human," replied Haewon, who had been invited to help analyze the situation. "I told you they operate on narrative logic instead of scientific law." The main display showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of blinking lights. Each light represented a location where something unexpectedly positive had happened in the past 48 hours. The pattern was spreading outward from Earth like a wave of hope. Commander Sun Ho entered the room, carrying a datapad filled with reports. His face showed a mixture of amazement and concern. "The humans have made contact with 17 different trading posts," he announced. "Every single interaction has been peaceful and mutually beneficial." "But that's not the strange part." "What is?" Kongzhou asked. "The strange part is that each trading post reported the same thing. After the humans left, their business improved dramatically. Customers who had been angry about prices suddenly decided the costs were fair. Equipment that had been broken for years started working perfectly. Even the food in their restaurants began tasting better." Youngmi shook her head in disbelief. "How is that possible?" "Because humans believe that meeting new friends should make life better," Haewon explained. "So when they meet someone new, life actually does get better for everyone involved." On the bridge of New Seoul, Captain Soyoung was having her own moment of realization. They had just received an invitation to visit the capital world of Central Prime, and she was beginning to understand that humanity's entrance into galactic civilization was not going to be like the science fiction movies she had watched as a child. "Captain," said Dong Hein, "our sensors are detecting massive changes in space-time around us. It's like the universe is healing itself." Soyoung nodded slowly. She had felt it too, a sense that everything was going to work out, that problems would have solutions, that the good guys would find a way to win in the end. 3 weeks later, the first official meeting between humans and the Galactic Council took place on Centralis Prime. Captain Soyoung Kim represented Earth, while Speaker Myung represented the assembled civilizations of the galaxy. "We have been watching your species for many centuries," Myung explained during the opening ceremony. "We were afraid of what would happen when you joined galactic civilization." "Why were you afraid?" Soyoung asked. "Because your people don't follow the same rules as the rest of us. You live in a universe where determination and hope have actual power. We were worried that you would change everything." Soyoung looked around the great chamber filled with representatives from hundreds of different worlds, and now smiled, the first time anyone had seen her do so in decades. "Now we realize that change might not be such a bad thing. Since your ships began traveling between the stars, our galaxy has become a more hopeful place. Ancient conflicts are ending. Impossible problems are finding solutions. People who had given up on their dreams are trying again. The maps of our galaxy used to end at your solar system," she continued. We thought it was because space ended there. Now we understand the truth. The maps ended at Earth, because that's where they were waiting to be redrawn by people who believe the universe should make sense. So-young smiled back. We're honored to help redraw them. Outside the Great Chamber, the first human embassy was already under construction. The building seemed to design itself, with rooms appearing exactly where they were needed most. Construction. Workers from a dozen different species worked together with an efficiency and cooperation that amazed their supervisors.